Hello, welcome back to the channel, welcome to this video, and welcome to Assetto Corsa. Now, I have seen quite a few videos going around on the car side of TikTok where people have been driving cars very fast down that short straight near the start of the Nürburgring, up onto the little jump, and then not making the right-hand turn after it. This is commonly captioned with "Cars don't fly," which is a Fast and Furious reference for those of you who are so cultured. And combining that with the fact that TikTok is mainly populated by 12-year-olds, I thought I'd start with the obvious, a Fast and Furious Supra. Now I'm going to explain the details of what I'm going to do as I drive my way down to that location. Now this car has a very nice adjustable turbo which puts us up to 100% at 519 wheel horsepower and some very short gears, presumably for quarter-mile drag racing, which is what the car was tuned for. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the location. As I said, we're going to go as fast as we can down the straight, and we're going to try and make the corner. Now, the rules for this are I cannot brake or let off the accelerator until I have landed from any airtime I may gain. If I do not gain any airtime, I will brake once I have crossed the crest of the hill, although in this car I sincerely doubt that to be the case. I should make a disclaimer also, as I am not a professional racing driver. I am not that good at this game, I just happen to be here. I like driving cars, and I'm nosy. I want to see if this actually works, or whether the people making the videos just can't drive, which is possible, you never know. So essentially what I'm saying is don't take this video too seriously. I'm certainly not, so I don't see why you should either. It's just for the memes. I just want to see what happens when I throw a car up a jump too fast. So we're going to start with this Supra, which has a decent chunk of power, is pretty light and has virtually no grip. Then what we're going to do is we're going to try and not slide off the road. We're going to move on to some heavier and slightly less powerful cars. Then we're going to go into some lighter cars, some more high-performance cars that were actually built to be high-performance instead of tuner cars like this. And then we're going to move on to some high-performance race cars, such as Gt3 LMP, that sort of thing. And we might finish off with something along the lines of a bus, just to see if it can make the corner or not. Anyway, without further ado, let's start, and we shall get a lot of wheel spin, because lots of power. Just going to flat shift this, and there we go. Already at 100 miles an hour, 110, 120, and we're already in 6th, and we're maxing out the gearbox. And into the air we go, and we can brake. Oh, that was close. A bit of a drift there. Okay, so that was interesting. I wasn't expecting us to make that, not gonna lie. I was expecting us to get a lot more airtime than that, but we didn't. And we made it. It was a little sketchy, I'm not afraid to admit that. I nearly slid off the track and I did get a bit of a drift going, which was kind of spicy. But it did make it. So, now what we need to do is we need to move on to our heavier saloon cars, as I mentioned, and see if a slight power deficiency, but less turning, affects how this goes. So I shall catch you when I have scrolled through my 1600 mods and found a suitable car. Alright, welcome back, and here we have an Audi A8 W12. If I am correctly led to believe by the Japanese symbols coming after the 450 in the car description, we're running about 450 horsepower through a 6-speed paddle shift gearbox. So this is very big, very heavy, slightly less powerful, but all-wheel drive, so it should get the power down better. And it's probably not going to turn very well. That's a fence. So I'm going to at least try and give this the beans around the track, although as you can probably tell by the fact that I am currently nailing the throttle, it's not got the most kick to it. It doesn't have an adjustable turbo, which is slightly disappointing, but what can you say? So I'm going to have to think of some conversation starters and time fillers as I drive somewhat more slowly to the start location. That was a little sketchy. See what I mean about me not being a professional racing driver? I am certainly not the best driver in the world on this track, not by a long shot. So, in terms of my hypothesis for this, I think we're going to make the corner, and the reason I think we're going to make the corner is... Whoa! No, that's not gone well. That's not exactly very encouraging, is it? Here's me trying to not embarrass myself and hit walls, and I proceed to hit a wall that I don't have damage on, so it's all good. I think this car is going to make the corner. Not by much, I think it will make it, but barely, and the reason I think it will make it is because I think it's not going to be going fast enough to get any airtime. And I think I'll be able to hit the brakes as soon as I pass the crest instead of having to wait and brake very late and risk locking up. Which would of course be driver error because I don't have ABS on. Not a peasant like that. Anyway, here we are. Let us begin. Lots of berries off the line. Although it does slow down somewhat because this is after all a luxury car, something of a boat, and it's meant to have some nice fuel economy on the autobahn. So we're going to get up to 117 miles an hour. And there we go over the crest and no problem whatsoever making the corner. Probably could have taken that a bit faster, come to think of it. So, big heavy cars are a win. They can take this corner successfully. We'll do the old bonus jump up here because we can. That wasn't much of a jump either. But now I need to go back into my inventory once again and try and find something a little more spicy. I shall catch you then. So here we are again, and here we have a 2004 Porsche 911 Gt3 Rs. And this will be interesting. It is pushing 381 brake horsepower, which is not as much as the Audi, and not as much as the Supra. However, the reason I am interested to see this car is because of the engine positioning. Now, Porsche generally does do an extremely good job of balancing out said interesting weight distribution caused by the rear engine layout. As we can see with the Porsche 911 Gt3 Rs, which is doing extremely well around the Nordschleife at the moment, and the previous generations of the GT2, which have held records. However, will this rear engine layout weigh down the back of the car, and will it do a massive wheelie, meaning I can't turn? Possibly. That's what I'm trying to find out. So this puts its power to the ground through a 6-speed manual gearbox, a rear-wheel drive, and a very nice, smooth, flat 6 engine. Now I'm hoping that I can get there without going into a wall, as I unsuccessfully attempted to do last time. Now this is a track car, I have no excuse for boating my way off into a field this time. Although I'm sure I will manage it, I'm not exactly a professional racing driver, as I have mentioned multiple times in an attempt to protect my dignity. This clearly does have an awful lot more spice to it than the Audi did. So we're now going to see if we can pull a wheelie in a Porsche. That would be very expensive if this goes wrong. This is why we're in a video game, that and I can't afford a Porsche. But what can you do? So, again we're going to go full beans up to the corner. Wow, I did not just do that, did I? Terrible. Anyway, we're just going to ignore that, pretend I can drive, and give it the beans. So we're not going very fast. We're going faster than the Audi was. This is only 124 miles an hour though, and again, we barely get any airtime. And we make the corner easily. Well, I think we're going to have to up our game a little bit, and I think we're going to have to get something quite a bit more powerful. So I am thinking we move ourselves into supercar territory. Not just track cars, but proper supercars. I'm thinking maybe a Mclaren. Yes, British V8 mood. Sounds good to me. And here we are again, this time with a McLaren 675 LT Spider that has a roof. Mainly because I don't have a 675 LT mod that isn't a Spider. Now, this is pushing somewhere around 675 horsepower, if I remember correctly, through a 3.8 litre twin-turbo V8. Rear-wheel drive and a 7-speed paddle shift gearbox. Considerably faster than anything we've tried so far, and I think this is probably going to take off to quite an impressive extent. Which is of course why I'm using it. This does sound very nice, doesn't it? An interesting fact about this car is after this, they didn't think the customers were getting enough satisfaction from the flames coming out the back, as you can see here. This car does like to spit fire in the high revs. There we go. So they thought, after this, let's have done with the rear exhausts in our long tail specs, and instead let's have the 600 LT, which this is not. That's the newer generation of this, essentially, with slightly less power. The long tail version of the 570S had the exhausts coming out of the roof of the car just above the engine. They say it's for weight reduction, but I think we all secretly know that it's to make more flames. Not that anybody's going to complain. Now, luckily when the cars get faster I don't have to talk as much because we get there faster. And considering we're already here, almost, I'm going to not go off this time. And I'm going to give it the beans. There we go. Now we're talking some real speed. I'm pretty sure this car is not going to make the corner. Let's see. Oh, good grief, some proper airtime there. Oh, no, never mind. Apparently we can still make it. That was pretty impressive performance from the McLaren. I was not expecting that much grip at all. Wow. This thing really does go, doesn't it? Might have to do a proper Nürburgring lap in this sometime. So yes, very fast, and it still made the corner. So maybe it really is that these people can't drive, but I have another idea. I'm going to go properly beans, and I am going to bring out something that will almost certainly fly into the wall. Now, I shall get back to you shortly. Right, here we are. As if this car needs any introduction, as it says its name on the side, this is a Koenigsegg 1-to-1. 1,341 horsepower, 1,341 kilograms of death trap. Now, I am a lot more concerned about my inability to drive this car than I am concerned about its inability to make the jump, because I'm pretty sure it's not going to be able to. This thing is absolutely nuts. I believe it is a good grief, an 8-speed gearbox. Let me check. Nope, 7-speed, never mind, I'm a pineapple. It's supposed to do over 250 miles an hour, although I don't think anyone's mental enough to try. It's not the easiest car to drive, I will admit that. It is running a twin-turbo V8 with 1,341 horsepower, as I mentioned, and it goes like the clappers. However, even if somebody was insane enough to take this around the Nürburgring in real life, they couldn't. And the reason for that is it actually breaks the noise limit barriers for the track. Therefore, nobody can legally take this car around the Nordschleife because it's too loud. Yeah, a racetrack with a noise limit that affects a road car. What's the world coming to? It also has really, really bad visibility, as you can probably tell. But what can you do? I mean, if I'm doing 250 miles an hour, I do generally want to see where I'm going. However, it's a Koenigsegg. Nobody's going to complain. Anyway, note carefully how I'm keeping it in third gear, because I don't want to end up with masses of wheel spin and getting sent into a bridge. Even though there aren't many bridges on this track, I'm sure I could find a way. So if this doesn't practically fly over the fence, I will be very surprised. But let's see. So I'm not going to give it as much beans, because if I do I'll spin off, because I'll get too much wheel spin. But there we go, foot flat to the floor in fourth gear. Downforce keeping it sort of planted. And there we... Oh, what a big wheelie. Not even close. Nowhere near. Oh dear, we seem to have gone for a little adventure. Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to happen. Maybe that's secretly why they won't let us test it on the Nürburgring, because it's too fast. And it goes under the map. Although you can see that, a very nice burnt titanium exhaust. Yeah, I think we'll have to get back to the garage on this one and bring out something a little different. Now, I am not ashamed to admit that this mod coming out was the only reason I decided to do this video, because I wanted to see how it was to drive this car over that jump. This is the Mercedes-AMG GT Black Series. I believe, at the time of making this video, it is the fastest car ever to lap the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and I apparently can't speak. So we're going to get going. Why am I in exterior view? Oh yes, because I went out of the map. We're going to go on a trip, so this is... I'm not entirely sure of the specs, to be honest. I didn't pay much attention. It's got a V8, it's big, it's twin turbo, I believe, or bi-turbo is the proper term. It's putting out a lot of horsepower, it's got a lot of downforce, and it goes around this track very fast. I can already tell it's much more stable than the Koenigsegg, predictably, considering it was actually meant to go around corners and not do very high speeds in a straight line. So, this is not the performance version of the performance version of the AMG GT, this is a separate performance version of the AMG GT. Because you have, in this range, you have the AMG GT, you have the AMG GTI, you have the AMG GTR Pro, and then you have the AMG GT Black Series. Completely mystifies me why they made it the GT Black Series instead of the GTR Black Series, but what can you say? So this is basically the successor to the Mercedes SLS AMG Black Series, which was arguably one of the most beautiful Mercedes of all time. But considering this car's lap times, I think it's done a pretty good job of filling some very large shoes. I can see why it's so fast, but I can also see that very big bonnet. And that leads me to remember an article I read not too long ago about this car being very difficult to drive around the Nordschleife because of how big its bonnet was, because you can't point the car towards an apex nearly as easily. Anyway, fast. So I got here very fast and now I have to stop talking. But let's see how this deals with the jump. I suspect it's either going to go very nice and smoothly or it's going to do a wheelie and I should have braked beforehand. But we'll see. Putting the power down, it's obviously much more stable. Now obviously, whoever drove this car... Oh, yep, perfect. Easy to get around here. Whoever drove this car obviously had a specific tune put on it, had the tyre pressures adjusted, had some nice tyres put on, had the gearing adjusted, all that doobry-doobry, suspension shakedown, stuff I know nothing about in this game, because I honestly haven't put the time into it. But still, it can make the corner, which I wasn't sure whether to expect or not. But nevertheless, I am impressed at the level of downforce on this car. That's pretty impressive. Right, so as I said, we're now going to go on to a Gt3 car, followed by an LMP car, followed by something that's probably going to do a backflip, followed by an interesting car. So I shall come back out here very shortly. Well, here we are with our Gt3 car. I thought I'd switch things up a bit, and this is the Alfa Romeo 8C Gt3. I am trying to avoid using cars from the same brand, so I thought I'd go for an Alfa instead of my very much liked Mercedes SLS AMG Gt3. So this is our first purebred hardcore race car. So I'm expecting it to have lots of downforce, lots of traction, lots of power, and hopefully be able to make it around the corner. But I don't know, and that is a lack of turning angle. This is pretty impressive lack of turning. I suppose when you're in a GT3 car you need to be an awful lot more sensitive with your turning input, so I can see why they've done it. So yes, this has a lot of speed. Oh, already, we can tell that. Not as much as the Koenigsegg, obviously, but then near enough nothing's going to have said Koenigsegg's pace. It's very nice around the corners, though. Much stiffer suspension, slick tyres. What does one expect? It's a cornering machine. And a lot easier to drive, too. I'm still being a bit careful on the throttle because I have had many experiences in this game of GT3 cars deciding they don't actually want to go around the corner. They want to go into the corner and spin. Because why not? You can even hear the transmission whine. This is a wonderful noise this car makes. Okay, so here we are, coming on to the straight again very quickly. So let's see what happens here, shall we? Picking up speed, already 120. Still not a patch on what the Koenigsegg pulled. I barely even had to brake there. I probably could have got away with not braking. That was entirely my fault because I hit the curb. But yeah, no, this car can definitely make the corner. Unsurprising, being a GT3 car. With all that grip and the downy force. Only has 6 gears though, so it does kind of run out of gears. So, a race car can do the corner. So now, like I said, we're going to move on to an LMP car, which I suspect will also make the corner. I'm terribly sorry to disappoint you with all this lack of flying into walls, but this was an experimental video after all. So let's go and get ourselves an LMP1 car. Well, here we are. I mean, if you're going to take an LMP car, you're going to do it properly. This is the 2016 Porsche 919 Hybrid with no turning angle. It's also all-wheel drive. Does it have an adjustable turbo? No, it doesn't. That's a bit of a design flaw on your part, Porsche. I can't adjust my turbo, I'm offended. But it does have all-wheel drive, 900 horsepower. If I'm not very much mistaken, it's one of the only cars ever to use a V4 engine. Although I may be wrong on that. It's a hybrid, obviously, so lots of hybrid power. I suspect that's what those green and yellow bars are towards the bottom of my rev counter. This thing goes very, very quickly. Wow. I suspect I can have a lot of confidence in this car. Yes, yes I can. This is utterly ridiculous. Yeah, and this is 100% going to make the corner if I can actually turn in on time. This is the sort of thing you watch Jimmy Broadbent drive him and he makes it look easy and you think, oh yeah, I could 100% do that. Then you come to actually doing it and you wind up eating a wall within the first 2 corners. Heike having to concentrate here. This is very, very stressful. I should stop talking while I'm driving. Well, anyway, that was very quickly. Here we are. So let's, without further ado, let's get going and try not to spin. You have to shift so quickly in this car. I'm already doing 165 and not even close. This would easily decimate the corner flat. I just didn't have the balls to not brake. Because this car, you just have to drive it on the edge. Like, you cannot not have confidence in it. If you want to be fast in it, you just have to believe that it's going to go around the corner, even if it doesn't seem like it. Like that, for example. It's a lot nicer to drive than you think, compared with other LMP cars that I've driven beforehand on this game. I know I'm going a lot further, but I have more things to talk about, so I'm going to continue to talk about them. Compared with other LMP cars, especially the rear-wheel drive ones, this thing gets out of corners beautifully, and gets into them very nicely as well. The only problem is, there is that massive A-pillar, and that massive A-pillar is very much blocking my view of corners. As you'll have seen when I went into the little tight section there, I had no idea where the curb was. I could quite easily have hit said curb and spun out. And obviously, since I'm not in VR, because I'm too poor for a VR headset, I can't move my head around, so I kind of have to deal with wherever the car's pointing. However, I must bring this very nice Nürburgring lap to a close and go back and get the penultimate car, because I did promise I was going to take something like a bus around, but I have something else I want to try beforehand, so I shall get back to you. Welcome back to our penultimate car. Now this, if you need any introduction again, is the Porsche 911 GT1 from 1996. This car is very famous for being on Bathurst and doing a backflip, which is why I was interested to try it. It also seems to have no turning angle, but we can sort of get around that. So it is driven by a 6-speed manual sequential transmission, although I'm not sure if the fact that my driver is currently reaching down to a gear stick that is a manual transmission that's sequential through the mod. I think this is a mod anyway, but it's got the speed. Not as much as the 919 had. I know I said I was going to try and use mods from different companies, but of course the 919 was the only way to go. The Porsche was essentially the only rear engine car you can find, and this, well, I didn't have a CLR. I should really get one of those. I don't have a CLR mod. That's kind of an oversight on my part. However, we shall get to driving this. Rear-wheel drive, so a lot more unpredictable in the corners than the 919 was. And it has about 300 tons less downforce, but that's besides the point. Not terrible. It does have a little bit of oversteer, but only when I'm very heavy on the brakes. So it's quite pleasant. Maybe I should do car reviews in the future. I mean, let me know in the comments section if you'd like that. But here we are. Let's go. Let's see if we end up doing a backflip. The reason this car did do a backflip is because the I believe it's a high pressure zone under the car was disrupted, which didn't happen here because I don't think it was enough of a jump, but it did make the corner quite nicely. But what happened was the God grief, I can't drive. The high pressure zone underneath the car, which sucks it onto the ground, that is made by the car being very low, called ground effect. And what that does is that sucks the car down onto the ground. When the 911 at Bathurst did a small wheelie on the jump, that ground effect was disrupted, and suddenly you have a torrent of air pushing on the bottom of the car that's really not supposed to be there. Now this is a very light and very fast car, so as soon as said torrent of air pushed down on, well, pushed up should I say, on the bottom of the car instantly flew into the air, and he couldn't do anything about it. He managed to stick the landing, but obviously GT1 cars were not made to do backflips, and therefore he did not complete the race. So I wanted to see if the same would happen here, but I don't think the ground effect was disrupted at all when I went over that jump. I don't think the car was going fast enough, and I don't think the elevation change was sharp enough. There's also the fact that this car does have a lot of downforce by its body shape, as you can probably tell. So it's not easy to get it to lift off the ground. That was probably the idea they were going with, to stop the ground effect being disrupted. But this was a very interesting car to test. I was expecting it to go airborne, so this was news to me. Anyway, before I start having far too much fun driving this car around the Nordschleife, let's go into our final car. I just need to decide which bus to use because I have a lot of them. Right then, here we go. Our final bus that you can't see. So this is a Volvo B7 TL double-decker bus. Not that you can see much. It's also sticking through the fence. I hope we can actually move. Oh, there we go. Got there in the end. I hope that's not removed my wheels. It may have. No, never mind. No, we're alright. No, I'm going to have to go the long way around here because I can't actually make the corner to get out, I don't think. Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to do a 75.5 point turn here. But for that I can give you a little bit of personal history on this bus. Now, when I was growing up in England, this is a First bus, and First was one of the two main companies that operated where I was living, and I really cannot drive this at all. Come on bus. So yes, First was one of the main companies operating. Good grief. I'm going to try this again. So there was First and there was Stagecoach, the two main companies that operated in England at the time. And we used to get buses very similar to this into town to go shopping quite a lot of the time. They were usually single-deckers, but we occasionally did get the odd double-decker, which was obviously quite pleasant, because who doesn't want to go to the top of a double-decker and sit in the seat right at the front? Unfortunately, it was something of a rarity, because the bus route we went on, where we got out? The bus route we went on rarely had double-deckers. There wasn't that much occupation on the buses, so that's ouch. Double-deckers were a treat, and they were very nice to ride in. And one of the double-decker buses that we rode in was this exact bus. Well, certainly this exact make of bus. I'm not sure if it's this precise bus. And you don't realise how impressive the engineering is behind these until you actually sit in one, because you would think a car this tall, if you did this, it would roll over. And it doesn't. It's very stable, it just stays planted. I hope I'm not going to hit that. Good. It's quite amazing. Now, growing up as a car person, I was obviously always happy to ride on the bus because it had wheels, and who wouldn't enjoy riding on something that had wheels? So, I like buses. I did always want to become a bus driver when I was young, purely because of the fact that I'd be driving all day. Then it was a taxi driver or a long-distance lorry driver. I wouldn't have said no to that one either, because long-distance lorry driver means lack of social interaction, and that is always a bonus. But yeah, now I got out of that and got into sim racing. Not to nearly as much of a degree as I play Forza, but I play this sometimes as well, which is always a bonus. Here we go for a corner. Oh, that was a little more sketchy than I was expecting. This bus is a lot faster than I was thinking it was going to be, not gonna lie. It weighs nearly 12 tons. 11,900 kilos to be precise. It has 289 horsepower and 1,050 newton meters of torque, which is a lot. Obviously it's a very, very large turbo diesel, but it certainly goes for a bus. So maybe make bus racing a more regular sport. I think that would be quite a bit of fun if they took old double-decker buses and just yeeted them round tracks. See if you can make it roll over. Maybe they should have bus rolling competitions. That would be interesting to see. Anyway, here we are. We're going to take a small eternity to get to the end of the straight, of course. I was quite surprised to find this bus was a 6-speed. I was expecting it to be a 3 or 4-speed. I'm assuming it is an automatic, but I don't know. I always wondered. I did spend a lot of time when I was younger wondering whether buses were automatic or not, because you can't really see the lever. Yeah, that was just like easy, unfortunately. You can't see the lever, especially like I am not short. I'm 6'4", but when I was a child, I couldn't see over the bus driver. The only reason I actually found out for certain that the bus was an automatic was getting on the school bus after school, because the bus driver would often get out and have a chat with the other bus drivers, and you could see in the cab that there was an automatic driving lever. It was quite literally, like, I think it was 5 years ago that I found out that that buses were automatic, and I'd been riding on them since I was about 6. So that just goes to show. I was today years old and I found out buses were actually automatic, because I always thought they'd be manual, considering how rough some of the gear shifts are. But there you go, there's an insight into my childhood lack of knowledge regarding buses. Anyway, I'm quite sure you've had enough of listening to me ramble on. So I'm going to bring this video to a close. Thank you very much for watching and putting up with my annoying English accent. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have partially enjoyed making it. I'm not gonna lie, this is the third attempt I had at the video, because on my OBS Studio I had set the P button as a hotkey for unpausing and pausing the video. Now, what I had not realised was when I was going to get into my Porsche 911 GT3 RS, I was typing in Porsche to narrow it down a bit because I'm lazy. And obviously when you type in Porsche, that triggers the hotkey, so I was pausing the recording, going out of the studio, typing in Porsche, and then starting the recording again and wondering why I hadn't paused it. So, what can you do? Anyway, again, thank you for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it, and wouldn't be complaining if you subscribed as well. And I will see you at some point in the not too distant future if I haven't bored you too much. Bye bye.